Gansu Grotto Art. Gansu Province in the northwest of China is one of the birthplaces of the Chinese civilization. The famous Silk Road ran through Gansu, and for nearly 2,000 years, the region was an important thoroughfare for economic and cultural exchange between China and the West. When the Silk Road opened under the Han Dynasty, 206 BC to 220 AD, Chinese-made silk started flowing continuously to the Roman Empire, and Buddhism and the Buddhist arts of sculpture and architecture were introduced to China from India and blended with China's own sculptural heritage. Thus, Chinese Buddhist sculpture art was born. Grotto art is an important component of Buddhist culture. Most grottos were built in mountains and cliffsides in keeping with the Buddhist idea of avoiding the turmoil of the world and communing with nature. This film introduces some of the extensive grotto art in Western China. With the passage of time, many temples built in cities have been destroyed, but grotto art carved into cliffs has been mostly preserved. There are many grottos scattered over the vast area of Gansu Province, most of which were created in the 4th to the 13th century. One outstanding representative of Gansu's numerous grottos is the Mogao Grottos, carved into the broken cliffs at the eastern foot of Mingsha Mountain to the southeast of the city of Dunhuang. The building of these grottos truly represents the intelligence and wisdom of the ancient residents of Gansu. They face Sanwei Mountain across a river to the east, so sand blown in by westerly winter winds cannot get into the grottos, and in the summer, when easterly winds are prevalent, Sanwei Mountain acts as a natural wind block. Thus, the Mogao Grottos occupy the safest place in this arid region. According to historical records, in 366 AD, a monk by the name of Le Zun came here and saw the Mingsha Mountain radiating myriad golden rays in the shape of 1,000 Buddhas. Convinced it was a sacred place, he carved the first grotto in the area. In following eras, a huge number of grottos were carved into these huge cliffs, forming a honeycomb of caves that stretches 1,600 meters from south to north. In 1900, Wang Yuanlu, a Taoist, discovered a vault used to store Buddhist scriptures while clearing away sand from their grottos. From that vault, more than 50,000 cultural relics have been excavated, including sutras, literary works, social documents, and arts and craft works. These well-preserved items cast light on the politics, military affairs, culture, science, and technology of ancient China, and count among the most important discoveries in China of the 20th century. In 1961, the Mogao Grottos were named a key historical monument under state protection, and in 1991, they were placed on the World Cultural Heritage List by UNESCO. Dunhuang Studies has a great wealth of content. For instance, The first-hand law book of the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907, excavated from the vault for keeping scriptures, has proven very helpful in studying the laws of that period. Other unearthed documents have been important tools to understanding the corvée labor, military service, land and credit systems of ancient China. The deciphering of Dunhuang music was a great achievement in the study of ancient Chinese music. What you are hearing now is a piece of ancient music from Dunhuang. The arts of the Mogao grottos in Dunhuang include architecture, painted sculptures, and murals. 492 grottos still have murals and painted sculptures, which have remained well preserved through the ups and downs of the past 1,000 years or so. Painted sculptures, numbering more than 2,500 in total, are an important part of the arts of the Mogao grottos. All of these sculptures were created in the 4th century, just after Buddhism was introduced to China. Therefore, most of them reflect the characteristics of ancient Gandhara art from India. Buddhist statue art constantly evolved with changes in society and aesthetic standards. After the 7th century, realism became the main direction of art, and the Buddhist statues carved in grottos from that time are very lifelike. The most attractive aspect of the Mogao grottos is their huge collection of fresco art, which features rich content and bright colors. The remaining murals cover an area of over 45,000 square meters and reflect the lives of people of different ethnic groups, social classes, and cultures in China's past dynasties. The murals of Dunhuang were basically created in 3 different periods. The first period was from 420 to 439. During this period, Western Buddhist art, introduced to China through the western regions, present-day Xinjiang, was extensively absorbed and blended into the murals in the Mogao grottos. From 581 to 848, Dunhuang's mural art entered a nationalized stage. The influence of the culture of China's Central Plains further facilitated the nationalization of the mural art of Dunhuang. The murals created during this period feature rich and varied themes, magnificent scenes, and bright colors. The third period was from 848 to 1368. Due to great changes in China's political situation, the mural art of Dunhuang gradually became more localized. The murals in the Mogao grottos are generally divided into figure, animal, landscape, and pattern frescoes. Though drawn by folk painters, these flying apsarases are vivid and lifelike, each with its own unique shape and features. Story frescoes occupy an important position in the Mogao grottos and reflect the major characteristic of the murals of Dunhuang. From a base in traditional Chinese arts, these story frescoes show the absorption of ancient Greek, Persian, and Indian cultures, and mainly tell stories about benevolence, tolerance, altruism, and self-sacrifice. The number 257 grotto is one of the oldest grottos in the Mogao grottos, dating back over 1,500 years. A mural in the grotto tells the story of a 9-colored deer that once saved a drowning man. Later, the man betrayed the deer for a monetary reward. In the end, he had to pay for his sins and died of a poisonous skin growth. A depiction of 500 bandits becoming Buddhists is the largest story fresco from the Western Wei dynasty, mid-6th century. A long time ago, 500 bandits were captured in a fierce battle. Officers and soldiers had their eyes gouged out and their noses cut off. Later, Buddha magically helped them see the light, and the 500 bandits became Buddhists. The number 217 grotto contains a wonderful landscape fresco. It depicts a group of people who went to look for treasure, accompanied by a teacher, only to encounter many difficulties. When they were about to give up, the clever teacher magically created a city before his students to encourage them to press on. The number 254 grotto is over 1,400 years old. The fresco inside tells a story of 3 princes that once went hunting in the mountains. They discovered a female tiger with 3 babies dying of hunger. The 3rd prince sent his 2 elder brothers away and fed himself to the tigers. These simple grottos were the dwelling places of monks, sculptors, painters, and other artists of ages long past. The famed Yulin Grottos and East Qianfo Grottos are located in a gorge on the Yulin River. 41 caves make up the Yulin Grottos. Judged by the shapes of the caves and mural styles, the Yulin Grottos were carved at the same time as the Mogao Grottos. The frescoes of the Yulin Grottos cover an area of 5,650 square meters, with 272 painted sculptures and 10,826 colored drawings. The content and style of the frescoes in the Yulin Grottos are closely related to those of the Mogao Grottos and are an important part of Dunhuang art. In particular, the Tang frescoes truly reflect the high artistic level of painting during that dynasty. The East Qianfo Grottos, sisters to the Yulin Grottos, are comprised of 23 caves containing murals from the esoteric sect of Buddhism, not to be found in the Mogao and Yulin Grottos. On the southern and northern walls of the rear passageway are some frescoes in a neat formation. One portrays Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, with streams and the moon, and the other depicts how the monk Xuanzang cleared the Yumen Pass at night on his way to India to collect Buddhist scriptures. The wondrous immortal paradises created by painters look both realistic and imaginative. The fresco entitled Xuanzang Going to India for Buddhist Scriptures is a rare visual clue on the evolution of Buddhist ideology and cultural exchange between China and India. In the mid-17th century, an ivory sculpture was found in the Yulin Grottos. It tells 50 Buddhist stories through carvings of figures, animals, pagodas, chariots, and horses. Judged by its carving techniques and the appearance of the figures, the ivory sculpture is very similar in style to the Buddhist art of the Gupta dynasty from the upper reaches of the Ganges River. The discovery of this rare treasure brought the Yulin Grotto's great renown, along with a string of tragedies. In the mid-19th century, 3 Taoist priests were killed while protecting the sculpture, and Guo Yuanheng, the last priest at the area, had a narrow escape. Leaving Dunhuang, we travel eastward along the Yilian Mountains and across the Heshi Corridor. Finally, we come to the Yellow River in the south of Gansu Province. Bingling Temple is located in Lesser Jishir Mountain. In ancient China, it was an important post on the Silk Road and on the route to the Tubo Kingdom during the Tang Dynasty. Tang envoys and monks traveled back and forth to the Tubo Kingdom along this road. In the Tibetan language, Bingling means 100,000 Buddhas. The construction of the Bingling Se grottos began in the Western Qin dynasty over 1,600 years ago. The Bingling Se grottos contain a total of 195 niches, frescoes covering a total area of over 1,000 square meters, 800 statues, and 50 Buddhist pagodas. The Bingling Se grottos are not as large as the Mogao grottos in Dunhuang and the Maijishan grottos. However, they are among the grottos with the longest histories of stone carving art in China. Thanks to their rich content and extensive themes, the Bingling Se grottos are considered an encyclopedia of grotto art. In 1963, an inscription written in 420 was found in the number 169 cave. That inscription is 100 years older than those discovered in the Mogao grottos in Dunhuang. As the oldest known inscription in China's grottos, it is of significant value as a reference in the study of other grottos in the country and the determination of historical periods of different works. The Bingling Se grottos are different from the Mogao grottos in Dunhuang and Maijishan grottos because they mainly contain stone statues. In the prosperous Tang Dynasty, stone statuary art reached its zenith. Many life-size stone statues are very well proportioned, displaying amazing carving skill. These stone statues are simple, vivid, and true to life, fully reflecting the prosperity of the Tang Dynasty. Both Han Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism originated from Indian Buddhism. Due to the strong influence of the customs of their own ethnic groups, it is rare that Han and Tibetan Buddhist statues appear in the same niche. However, in the Bingling Temple, it is quite common for both Han and Tibetan Buddhist statues to be housed in one niche. As Tibetan Buddhism has been subject to minimal influence and impact from foreign cultures, it still contains many primitive aspects. Of all the famous grottos in China, the Meijishan grottos boast the most beautiful scenery. The Meijishan grottos are one of the four major grotto complexes in China and contain 194 caves. Construction of the grottos began in the 4th century and ended in the 5th century. A remarkable characteristic of the Meijishan grottos is that all the caves are located on steep cliffs, 20 to 80 meters above the ground, and the caves are linked by suspended plank roads built along the cliff faces using fixed wood brackets. They are indeed miraculous creations in the history of Chinese architecture. The Meijishan grottos contain the best preserved collection of clay sculptures and clay figures with stone rough casts. If Dunhuang is a large fresco gallery, Meijishan is a huge sculpture hall. The largest sculpture is over 15 meters high, and the smallest just 20 centimeters tall. These works embody the characteristics of sculpture during different dynasties over roughly the past 1,000 years, and systematically reflect the development and evolution of Chinese clay sculpture art. The clay sculptures in the Meijishan grottos have strong worldly and national characteristics. The shapes and costumes of the clay figures in the Meijishan grottos embody the characteristics of the Han people and show little influence of outside cultures. Another characteristic of the clay sculptures of the Meijishan grottos is the aesthetic effects of their combination of dynamism and stillness. More than other ancient grottos in China, the Meijishan grottos are filled with bold folk colors. The south and north grottos were first built in 509 and 510, and in subsequent dynasties, more grottos were carved. The honeycomb-shaped north grottos contain 2,125 statues and 295 caves, densely scattered over an area 20 meters high and 120 meters long. The number 165 grotto is the most representative, with 7 8-meter high Buddhist statues standing side by side. The 7 Buddhist statues are tall, strong, and powerful. Such Buddhist statues are rarely seen in grottos in China. The Buddhist statues in the South grottos are shorter, each around 6 meters high. Vivid and true to life, they are precious works of art. The Shiwangmu grottos are located 5 kilometers from the South grottos. Though much smaller than the South grottos, they have their own characteristics and contain bold, unadorned, and exaggerated statues. Of all the grottos in Gansu, the Shiwangmu grottos are the only ones that still host popular sacrificial activities. In the 3rd lunar month of every year, a temple fair is held here. During the fair, various folk activities are held. The grotto art in Western China represents the crystallization of the diligence and wisdom of the artists and people who lived, labored, and multiplied on this land, and stands as a historical witness to the constant process of melding and developing of the economies and cultures of China and the West. These precious temples of art are the common heritage of all mankind.